opened Garageband, and there are several things I can do from the home page. I can open up old songs. I can export them. I can press plus, which will add new, which is just a quick voice recorder. So, or if you just want to quickly record a sound, which is really useful if you are work with kids and you want to do a quick project, for example. Let's go back. So I want to make a new song. I'm going to press the plus. In iPads, the plus is always add something new. And it comes in. The first thing it asks me to do is to create my first track. Now, GarageBand is split into what we call tracks. So each track will have a different instrument or different part of an instrument on. In rock music, for example, you will have a vocal track, a drum track, a bass track, a guitar track, strings, and each track will have a different instrument. There are some really good videos on YouTube about how that's split up. So where people mix things in together in different ways. It's a really good one on the Making a Bohemian Rhapsody that shows that. So usually what we start with is a drum track, and there are a couple of ways of doing this in GarageBand. So there are acoustic drums, which are just, it's a general drum set. Let's get a classic drum set, and I can use my fingers to play. That's one way of doing it. I can go back. There is also the beat sequencer, which is more of a decomposition algorithm based version of doing it, which is quite a good way of getting the children to see what's happening when. So let's have and this is how old music machines would work. In the 80s. I can press the instrument at the side to change what it does. It can randomize a little bit. I can change the type of instrument it is. I can also randomize, and it'll give me a completely random. I can also change instruments. So at the moment, this is what we call an 808 machine. This is one that, if you've heard any song from the 1980s, it would have used. Lots of hip hop use them. Ooh. Let's try and change now. Let's go there. Or I can use smart drums. Smart drums will do this automatically. So I can say. So I can choose between loud and quiet, so which parts, which instruments I would want to be louder and quieter, because I want some drums to be loud, some drums to be quiet. I can also change from a simple beat to a complex beat. I can add a shaker, and it will keep it in time. But once I've got my beat, what I want to do is record it. So I'll press record, it will count in with the metronome, and it will just record it. And along the top we can see this is a timeline. And it usually does it in beats of up to 8, depending on the length of time you've set it to. If I'm working with year 4s, I would keep the short song quite short, otherwise the chance will be overcomplicated. There we go. So it's done it for 8 bars. Again, if I wanted to, I could press the plus, and I could change that. I could add another section to my song. But again, I would just work in a short section first of all, and then we can add it in. Now, we've got our first piece of music. Let's stop that. There are also the useful controls like the undo. You can also randomize. You can change the instrument. You can change the volume. You can change the add a metronome. If you click on the settings at the top, it will let you change the tempo and the time signature and so on. Again, I probably wouldn't mess too much with that if I'm working with 8-year-olds. But again, it depends on what your music curriculum is. Changing the tempo, experimenting and see what happens, that would be quite a good thing to do. So if I press this button here, this will take me to my track listing. At the moment I've got 2 tracks. So I don't want that one. I can hold down on there and it will give me some off. No, it won't. If I press on it, it will give me some options. So I can delete it, I can duplicate it, I can rename it. Let's delete that. So at the moment I've just got my first layer, my drum machine. Now I can add another instrument. There are several instruments I could use. So let's click plus. Let's go across as an amplifier, which means you can play in a musical instrument, or probably a guitar if you have the right connector. There's an audio recorder for voice, or you can record an instrument, and that's a great way of linking it into musical lessons. That's how you'd add vocals. There are some strings, and you can add some smart, what we call smart strings. So it'll play it for you. Let's have a go at that. So at the moment, all I have to do is press that. I'll select if I select autoplay, it will play the strings for me in the correct key. I can choose to turn off certain instruments. There are 4 different tunes for each one. I can change the key. I can also change the type by clicking up here where it says cinematic. So let's have some pop. So I'd say I wanted to add this to my song. What I would do is put it back to the start, click on record, it will count me in 2, 3, 4. And there we go, it's gone through the 8 bars, so that's all part of it. And I can go back by clicking on here to my main track listing. And there we go, I now have my 2 tracks that play together. Certain things I can do here, if I swipe along the side, it gives me all control. So what I can do is I can get this to press the headphones, and that will play it as a solo, so we'll only play this track. Get rid of that, I'll play both. Press the other button, it will mute it. And then they're tools quite commonly used by producers when they make music. Let's add another track in. Let's create. So then the bass and guitar are very similar to the strings. Let's have a look at the guitar. So again, you have the smart play. I can strum using my finger. I can press at the top to play a chord. I can select autoplay. I can also choose different types of guitar and add effects. If I go back to the instrument, or if I click on notes there, I can play with multiple fingers at once. I can actually play the guitar just by putting my fingers on the strings. I can also click on scale, and it will give me only the major note in the scale. So they are slightly light coloured on here. They're the key notes. If I keep it in a scale, it makes it a bit easier to play something that makes sense. The major pentatonic scales is one that's used in quite a lot in rock music. Again, these are all things I'd get the kids to play about with. Let's go back to our main track view. We've got, I don't want that, so I'm just going to tap on it and delete it. So there are others as well, instruments. There is a drummer tool that will create for your own drum track. I'd probably avoid using that because I'd want the children to have a go at making their own first. And you can plug your own things in. There are sound libraries as well, I'll go into that in a second, and there is the keyboard. So again, like all the other instruments, you've got the smart piano and you've got what's called the Alchemy synth, which is where you just play it depending on what your instrument is. At the top here I can change it, so if I wanted just a normal piano, that's in there somewhere. Some things it might want you to re-download. Oh, I've lost a piano. Oh, there we go. We need to go back to main. So if I go to keyboard, grand piano, there we go. That's as much as my piano skills go to. But what is also there, which is really useful, is if I go back to the track, I can also go to the list of instruments by clicking this button here. Let's get rid of that. Let's get a new let's click on the plus to get a new instrument. Let's go to the sampler. Now I'm going to get something, and what we're going to do is we're going to make some songs. Some music. So I've got a wine glass here, or a gin glass. I'm going to record the noise that it makes, and I'm going to use it to create a new noise. So all I need to do is press record. So I know that this bit here is a noise I just made. And I can use these tools here to get rid of any extra noise. So now, when I press the keyboard, I've made my own musical instrument using a glass. And it's quite good to get the kids to experiment with different ways of making music. Again, I can click on scale and it will mean I only play the notes in a scale. Also works with voices. So there's other things I can do as well. Is I can reverse that so it goes from quiet to loud. Or I can loop it so it happens over and over again. That's quite a long noise, so that works slightly better than slower noises. You can also get the kids to sing, and it will make their own song. La. So I can get rid of the extra bits and get myself to sing. So let's go back to the main view. There's one more thing I want to show you. Didn't mean to press that, sorry. That was to go back to the instrument. You can always go back to the last instrument you're in by clicking on that button there. I want to add some sound effects and loops that exist. There are lots of pre-recorded sounds in Garageband that we can use, which are really useful if you're making things like podcasts and such. So let's go to Smart Loops, and here we go. Apple Loops rather. There are hundreds of these. I can click on it to play it. A lot of these you might have actually heard in adverts before, because these are copyright free and lots of companies use these. So let's say I want to use that boss level chimes. I'm going to hold it down, I'm going to drag it in. Oh. No, didn't mean to do that, sorry. But it has split up and down the synthesizer, which means I can change that. But anyway, but that's not what I wanted to do. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, let's go back in there. Boss level arpeggio. I'm going to drag it into a new track and I can play it there. It sounds a bit odd, but and that's the main areas of Garageband. And again, if I wanted to add vocals, all I do is go to audio recorder, click on voice. There's a couple of things I can do in there. If it's studio, that's more for proper recording. I can click on fun now and it will give me some different options. So I can turn myself into a monster, into a robot, like I'm talking on a bullhorn, etc. And once I've done, all I need to do is go back to the track view. Wrong button. I can click on the cog at the top for settings. No, that's how you used to be able to do it. I'll click on the button at the top there. The little page. If I can go back out, then that's where I can hold down, and then I can share it, so I can export it. So by just sharing it there, I can share with anything depending on. So a project will save it as the file, so you won't be able to play it. If you want it just as a song, click on song, it'll send it as an MP3 or whatever you select. And then you can choose where to share it. So usually, if in my skill, we'd share it to Google Drive.